here at the 21st event of UF Studies and Research, and we're here in Phoenix, Arizona. It has been a 4-day program with some extraordinary adventures in all kinds of theories, definitely research, information, and documentation. And we have with us here Bruce Allen May, who is an attendee here, who is actually, like myself and some others, just walking around listening and hearing what's being said. Bruce definitely has some opinions of the different things that he feels is not being said and could be said, and still again feeling that there are things, no matter how much conversation we've had here, that there's still things not being said. So Bruce, welcome to Consciousness Unlimited.
Nice to be here.
All right, and want to give us a little background on yourself. Who are you? And when somebody says Bruce Allen May, who is that?
Well, I'm from Indiana originally.
Okay.
But I've always been involved directly in the UFO mystery, and maybe we'll get a chance to go into that in depth. But I wanted to repeat what I said to you before we started.
Okay, very good.
See, the story I told her is that I knew this guy. He was in research and development, and they gave him the task of trying to photograph an electron. And despite all the odds, he managed to pull it off. So he went to his management and he showed them, look what I did. And they got angry. They said, you idiot. They tore the stuff up. He didn't understand why. He said, what's wrong? And they said, well, you're not supposed to find the answers. You know, if you find the answers, we don't get the funding for research and development.
Right.
Well, that's the way this UFO Congress is. You know, these people, well, they'll sit there and readily tell you that they know that the United States is covering something up.
Yeah.
But yet, when you try to tell them what it is specifically that the United States is covering up, they don't want to hear that. They'll come up with all this off-the-wall stuff, and it just drives me crazy.
Okay.
So, to give you an example of something. 15 years ago, sorry, I look at you.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Okay.
Hey, people out there. Hello. But 15 years ago, I got tired of all the gay jokes about Whitley Strieber. You know, there was all those comments that people made. You know, what's up with this anal probing business?
Yeah.
And lots of other things that was said about him. And after a while, I got tired of him. What happened?
Nothing. She has to just keep her attention on the program. There you go.
Oh, sorry. The screen just went black. So it's still running, right?
Oh yeah, you're still there. You're still being filmed whether the screen's there or not. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing is that I wrote him a letter 15 years ago wherein I brought to his attention a very specific National Geographic special pertaining to scientific efforts to save the panda from extinction. The things that they had to do to tranquilize the animal and then use an electronic device entering through the rectum to stimulate the prostate for the release of sperm and other things. Well, the process is called animal husbandry.
Yes.
I wrote him this letter and I asked him if I could come and speak to him at more length in person. And he never wrote back. But the irony is that I know that the letter changed his life because the things that he had experienced prior to my letter were terrifying. And the things that I wrote to him helped him to understand some of the things that were happening and helped him to get through it emotionally. It brought him some peace of mind. And but he's never even so much as sent me a postcard in the mail to say thank you. And I've heard him talk about my letter, you know, on the radio a dozen times. And today, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, I heard him on the radio talking about when they extracted sperm from him, and he was talking about it like it was common knowledge. You know, like he was talking about milking a cow.
Yeah.
And until I told him what had happened to him, he didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Now, that's the way a lot of this stuff has been. I have gone from person to person to person, and I've made major impacts on all these people. Whether they admit it or they don't, I've had major impacts on these people. Then they turn around and they never admit it. They never mention me by name. And I happen to know what's going on, and I just want to touch on a little thing here.
Okay.
And it goes back to Whitley Strieber. The cattle mutilations.
Yeah.
People will ask, why do they do that? That is the grays. I'll tell you straight out that that's the grays. The reason that they're mutilating that cow has to do with long-term studies on immunology. If, to help you people at home to understand, if you took an Asian elephant from today, you send it back in time in a time machine 20,000 years ago, it's going to die from microorganisms on the earth because it has no immunity to the microorganisms of the time.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you take an elephant from 20,000 years ago, like a woolly mammoth, bring it forward in time to today, it also will die because it has no immunities to today's microorganisms.
Right.
The purpose of these things is because these things are planning to invade. Everything that they do is in preparation for an invasion. The anal probes, I've heard people say, what's up with that anal probe business? It studies on immunology.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand it, but most people know what diarrhea is. Because the body, when it's exposed to microorganisms, flushes it out to the end of our intestinal tract. And that's exactly why when they go out into the wild, they take a laser scalpel and they core that out. In Whitley Strieber's case, they did tests like that, but in addition to which they took sperm. And one of the things that they're doing is they're creating hybrids that are part human and part them. And the purpose of those hybrids is to create vaccines. By using these hybrids, they're creating vaccines for themselves that will make them immune to the microorganisms that are presently here now.
Okay.
Now, everything that's going on across the board has to do with that immunology. If people wonder, what has that got to do with UFOs and aliens? I mean, for God's sakes, all you got to do is watch War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
War of the Worlds, people. Because we're not talking about Germany invading Poland here. We're talking about the possible conquest of an entire planet that has 7 billion people on it. And for those of you people out there who don't think that this is serious, or maybe this guy, I want to tell you a story. And I want you to listen to these facts, okay? In the years 1914, 1915, 1916, and 1917, Germany was winning World War I. But in 1918, something happened that was so catastrophic that it forced the politicians of Germany to capitulate to everything. As a result of which, all the guys who were left alive in service felt betrayed. They felt betrayed by their government. How do you surrender to these people? Well, the politicians were trying to explain to them, we've got to stop this war. We've got to stop this war. And the soldiers, of course, were trying to tell them, what happened to us has happened to the whole world. And it's not right. Well, the Germans happen to know something that most of the rest of the world didn't. And this is the facts. In 1918, the death toll in Germany alone was almost 38 million people. Now, there was only 1,700,000 combat casualties, and that's basically both sides, which means that over 36 million people just dropped dead. from a virus. And this virus did not start in any one place and spread out. It was crop dusted over the entire planet. And we know that that's the case because in northern Canada and Alaska, there were whole entire Indian communities with thousands of people in them that were wiped out by this virus. And they had no contact with the outside world. This organism, it didn't attack any other living thing. It didn't wipe out herds of cattle. It didn't hurt the horses, the dogs, the cats. It just specifically targeted human beings.
And those particular DNA.
Well,
They had natives and other people.
okay, but that's another question. But here's the thing, you see, because in World War I, human beings used biological warfare for the first time in recorded human history. Nerve gas, mustard gas. There was somebody out there who was watching what we were doing here on this planet. And they thought to themselves, well, look how primitive that is. And they thought that they would give us a taste of their level of technology.
Wow. Okay.
And they did. But the story doesn't end there. Because the first question is, who did this? But here comes the second question. The second question is regarding who else is out there, because by the end of 1919, that organism was dead. The people who later became the CDC, they had vials of this organism that just died. And they didn't have any explanation as to why this organism died planet-wide. But somebody out there intervened on humanity's behalf and basically found the off switch and killed this thing off. Now, there are two groups out there. One of them is trying to hurt the human race. The other group out there is trying to save the human race. And one of the things that the government is not letting anybody in on is the fact that there's a war on, a real blood and guts shooting war that's taking place right over our heads by beings from different places for opposite reasons. Now, I come to these UFO conventions and listen to these guys, and when they talk about the aliens, that saying it like that, the aliens, there are two different groups. You can't lump all these people together in one group. You have to discern who the differences are, where they're from, why they're here. And that's the other thing I want to tell you, because the United States government knows who they are. Don't you think out there that the United States government doesn't know? Because I know that's a question. People will say, well, maybe the reason the government isn't coming clean is because they don't know themselves. Maybe it's a mystery to them. No, that's not the case. They know exactly who it is. And, I'll show you something. I'll see if I can get this on the screen.
So while you're doing that, let me bring a question to you.
All right.
There was some discussion here that basically, and I think it came from Dr. Greer, that basically there is a global power that rules or influences all governments. So you've used the term here several times, the U.S. government. Do you believe that the U.S. government has an autonomy on this, that this is not like a given world power that manipulates this country as well as all the other countries?
Yes. It is
Okay.
definitely the United States that's calling the shots. Regardless of whatever else is going on in the world, if we're talking about banks, if we're talking about oil, China will get in there, Russia will get in there, they'll all argue, But the second it becomes UFO, everybody steps back and says, the United States is taking care of this. China takes a back seat. Russia takes a back seat.
Okay.
The United States is the one calling the shot.
And Bruce, where would people get this information? How?
It's not getting out there.
It's not getting
None
out
of the information.
So
And that's the
nobody's
thing,
writing about it.
because all the information